Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. This is DV LeBron. Today, I have a very special guest, Mr. Randy Melton, who is running for Waxahachie City Council, Place 5, the seat currently occupied by Mr. Travis Smith. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Well, you know what? I appreciate you coming on the show. I love when the guests come, and I'm going to tell you, like I tell everybody who decides to run and put themselves through this mess that is Ellis County's politics. Thank you for wanting to serve your community. I know that this can be quite difficult, and there's some ugly people. The fact that you want to put yourself through it says a lot about you. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you.
So a lot of people may not know you, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the mic so you could kind of give an intro about yourself.
Okay. So my name is Randy Melton, and I moved to what my family and I moved to Waxahachie in 2014. We had been in Dallas for approximately 20 years. I grew up in the great state of Tennessee and migrated here in 1988. Got here as quick as I can. So my family and I migrated over here because our kids were going to school here, and so we found a house and decided that we would make Waxahachie our final home. And I hope that it continues to be our place. And so a little bit about me is I have a bachelor's degree in biblical studies from the Criswell College. I also have a Master of Arts degree from Liberty University. I have spent the last 24 years in public service working for the Department of Family and Protective Services. My responsibility has been I'm not an investigator with CPS, but I am a family preservation worker. We work with families ongoing to eliminate or hopefully to reduce the risk of abuse and neglect in the home for young children. And I've been doing that for 24 years. It has been a very rewarding career. I am fully eligible to retire at this point, but I will always stay involved in some form of fashion with child welfare. So
Yeah.
that's kind of who I am.
That is admirable. Serving the children and trying to help children is that's a big task, and then the system is ugly and has a lot of kinks and things that prevent you from doing good things sometimes. So there's a lot of things that you got to deal with when you're dealing with family protective services and stuff like that. So thank
Yes.
you for doing that. So what made you want to run? What made you want to get into this?
Well, it was kind of interested. I had a few people approach me and asked me if I had ever considered being in politics, and they told me that there was currently two candidates running for city council that was running unopposed, and would I consider throwing my hat in the ring and becoming an opponent for one of them? And so I've always been kind of fascinated with politics. I love this city. I love Waxahachie. I just love the historical significance that this community has, and just the camaraderie this community has. And I would like to see it to continue in the future. And I've noticed since we've been out here since 2014, Waxahachie has changed. There has just been tremendous growth. Uh, and that cannot be avoided. Okay, a city like this is going to grow. People want good, healthy communities for their kids to go to school and feel safe when they're in school, and I think that's what's appealing to most young families that come to this area. So I decided to throw my hand into the ring, and we'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, that just throwing yourself in, throwing that hat in the ring is a step. I mean, that is it's admirable to want to serve, like I've said, and I tell every candidate. But there's a lot of things, and you mentioned growth. So
Yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and go into growth.
Mhm.
So as you know, Waxahachie has grown. The projected growth rate as of the last budget, so this could have completely changed, was something in the range of 5%, that the growth was going to continue. And like housing starts kind of went down. They went up to a record level like in 21 and then went down. Um, so there's a lot going on. It's still growing. There's stuff that was already approved, years ago, and there's a lot of growing pains. So I want to know, what are your thoughts on how we're growing, and what would you like if you were elected to city council? What are some of the things you'd like to see when handling growth in the city?
Okay. So I think growth in this community is it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Uh, it has been growing very rapidly, and I think the decline, it probably has a lot to do with the current situation with our economy and the slowing down of growth of our economy. But the growth is going to happen, and so I think we have to prepare for that. We can't wait for it to just burst everywhere, and then try to come back and catch up on things that we need with our infrastructure and stuff like that, and our schools. We've got to prepare for that, and a lot of stuff has been put into place over the past few years, and we need to continue on that path because the growth is going to happen. I think we need growth that is going to contribute to our economy, growth that's going to contribute to healthy families in the area, and growth that is appealing to have companies to move here.
I've heard, and I think it was particularly, it might have been Waxahachie. Yes, it was the last mayor, um, Mayor Barnes. He came on and he talked about Waxahachie being a place where you work, where you shop, and where you live. Is that something kind of that you envision as Waxahachie goes forward? And if you were elected, is that kind of the route that you'd like to take?
Absolutely, yes. Maintaining, it's very important to me, and one of the things that was appealing to my family was the historical downtown, the historical homes around here, and just the historical society in general. I really strongly believe that our community needs to maintain that and not allow the growth to take that away. And I think the city has been on the right track to do that. I think the revitalization of our downtown area has been very productive, and we just need to keep that moving forward at this time. But yes, we need growth in businesses, we need place to work, we need recreation, and of course, decent homes for people to live in.
The city was working on and has been working on a plan, the long-term plan. Have you looked at that, and what are your thoughts on it?
I have not looked at that. I was watching the city council the night that it passed,
Hmm.
but I'm a firm believer. You have to plan for the future. It may not be 100% written in stone that that is exactly what's going to happen because we know things change over years. 5 years from now, we need to maybe remodify that plan to make it conducive to where we are at that time. But I do think that if a city does not have a plan like that, then we're just shooting at the stars. You may or you may not hit. So I am very much in favor of maintaining an active plan of where we're going and what we're doing.
One of the things that is part of this growth is the city hall had to grow.
Yes.
So the Beatty building, named after a good city council and public servant, Mr. Beatty, um, being built, it was over budget. Because there's a lot of things that go into building, and especially with inflation, there's a lot of things that go. That's above. But yeah, you had the new city hall, and I wanted kind of your thoughts on the new city hall, and do you think that it's kind of been handled right and everything?
I think it has. I really do. I have seen some of the additional funding that had to be put into that development. You vote on a budget, you vote on proposals, but it's over time, and really, just as we have seen inflation in the last year is phenomenal. That you're just not going to be able to finish the way you started, and probably in that budget that you started. It's kind of like running your home. You plan so much for your autos, your homes, and everything. But then if something happens and you have to repair an auto, then that's an extra added expense. And you can't just walk away from a development like City Hall and say, well, we can't do it. Where are you going to get the money? Contractor, what are you going to do? It has to continue to be funded. And I think it's been handled very appropriately at this time.
Excellent, excellent. It's been a major project, and
Yes,
it's actually a very pretty building.
it
I
is.
gotta
It really
say,
is.
it's a very nice addition to downtown. Definitely shows that it's growing.
Hmm.
But one of the things that kind of go into that is I kind of wanted to get your sense of taxes.
Hmm.
So, in order before I go into taxes and budget, I wanted to know, how important is it to you? This is a theory question. How important is it to you to be a good steward of the taxpayers' money?
Well, I consider that taxpayers' money as my money, as it's coming out of my pocket. And yes, I have to be a good steward of my money. I want to know where it's going. I want to know that it's used wisely. Uh, and it's therefore, and that we have, adequate funds for something that may happen, disastrously within our community that may need extra funds. But yes, it is 100% to me important. I mean, I don't run my household without budgeting and without making sure that all the bills are paid and things like that. And so and it's like for me, if I'm elected to the city council, I am a representative of the people. I have no power. I may make decisions. If I'm struggling with making the decisions, I know there are people in the community that I can run things by to get help me make that decision. And I think that's important. I'm not there for power or esteem. I am there to serve. And that means serve the people in the community and do the very best job that I can, spending their hard earned tax dollars in appropriate manners. And I think sometimes, just like we were talking about City Hall, people don't understand, or I mean, it is their money, and we are spending their money, just like I spend my money, and so sometimes I think we just need to allow them the opportunity to ask those questions. They want to know why it's going well over budget, and I think for the most part, it's well justified if we could just sit down and have the opportunity to share that with the people.
Since you're talking about that, how important is it for you to be transparent to the people of Waxahachie if you were elected?
Well, just like I said, it's everything. They can hold me accountable. I have no
Ex-
problem with that.
They can contact you and talk to you.
Absolutely.
Sounds,
Absolutely. If
sounds
I needed to defend a decision that I've made, I'll try my best to defend it. We may not agree. Not everybody's going to agree with me, and I'm not going to agree with them.
that
But
happens occasionally. Um,
yes,
how you deal with that, Mr. Melton? I'm sorry if to interrupt. Sometimes
no
I
problem.
apologize. Let me apologize in ahead because I don't do it with malice. When you're in this political arena, there's going to be all these different opinions about how you're doing things, and those people who vehemently disagree with you, sometimes that could get ugly. So I want to know how you're going to deal with those, and then we'll get into taxes and budget.
I'm going to bring them to the table, and we're going to talk about it. I
And
think at some point there is a medium, there is a solution, and I have to think outside of the box, and I challenge them to think outside of the box to come up with a good solution.
yeah, solutions are usually, the complaints are easy, the solutions are a lot harder. So,
Yes.
so when we're talking about taxes and budget, people are losing their homes. There's a lot of things going on with taxes in the state of Texas. Now, um, the biggest chunk of that is the school board. And that's why I'm going to have Dr. Hollingsworth on next week to talk about the WISD bond. That is the biggest part. But the second biggest part would be the city taxes. And, there was a lot of things mentioned during the tax debate. One of them was going to a no new revenue rate, and maybe half a cent cut, and there was competing opinions on the council about how this should go, and they came up with a rate, and then later they did something innovative. They said, let's do a a homestead exemption for the city, um, providing the taxpayers a little more relief. I want to know in general what are your thoughts on taxes, and then what are your thoughts on that homestead exemption? Is that something you would have supported, and how will you handle the tax question when you're sitting there? Would you be like a no new revenue guy, or let's meet somewhere in the middle, or hey, we got to fund this government, that's it?
Okay. Good question. Let me start by saying I don't understand everything about the city government at this time. I am new to this. I've done a little bit of research, but I don't fully understand everything. However, when it comes to taxes, taxes is like a double-edged sword. Nobody wants to pay taxes. I mean, personally, I don't want to pay taxes,
Uh,
but I know it's a necessary evil that we have to. If we're going to live in the community that is protected, that we have first responders, we have decent streets, water, sewer, a home to live in, we're going to have to pay our fair share of taxes. I think we start by addressing that concern with community by let's look at where we're spending the money. I think we need to be transparent in where we are actually spending the money and how much it really costs to run the city. I think that will help them to somewhat understand that. Along with that, I haven't necessarily been exposed to anyone telling me that someone was taxed out of their home. I've heard that phrase, but I need the proof. I need the
Okay.
proof. Uh,
Okay.
but it's a legitimate concern. I
Mhm.
understand we have an aging population in Waxahachie to a degree, and taxes are strenuous on them. When I look around at the property values around me, um, it's amazing that I feel like I pay more than anyone else, but there are a lot of older people around me as well, and that's okay. That's okay. They've done their time. They've paid their taxes. They're in their homes, and they need to stay in their homes. I hope we are not in a situation where taxes are so high as a senior citizen with their exemptions of being over 65, they cannot pay their taxes.
Right.
That
Well,
would just break my heart to think that one senior citizen has to leave their home because they can't pay their taxes.
yeah, I can see, I can see that being definitely a problem. What is important though is when you show concern for that, and because there are people, I haven't seen it personally,
Hmm.
but I've seen how taxes can raise that mortgage quite rapidly, and I haven't retired yet. That is 4.5 years out, God willing. And once I get that retirement, that's it. It's not going up. That's it. So I could imagine if my mortgage was going up, it would be very, very difficult. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things going on structurally with taxes, Mr. Melton. So I don't understand it either. you know
Yeah,
I've sat there and looked through the budgets, and I've actually talked to the mayor and about budgets, and he could go down into numbers and crevices that I am not smart enough to go through. So, I get it. I get it here. So, when it comes to the budget, um, is that when you're part of this budget process, if you're elected and you're part of this budget process, what can the voters of Waxahachie expect from you as you review this budget with the city manager and the other city council?
it'll be scrutinized. I can tell you that. I just, I, I will ask questions. I need to know that every penny is accounted for, and we're not being just frivolous with things that we don't necessarily need. I think as we look at a budget, we have to look at salaries, our city employees, all the way across to see if we're truly taking care of them. Um, it'll be scrutinized. I think every department comes asking for money. It needs to be scrutinized. We need to know what that money is going to be used for, and if it's being used wisely.
Wow. Yeah. And it's I'm gonna reach out to the city manager because I know the budget is getting ready. They're already working on the budget. The city is, at least. Um and soon the budget workshops, if they haven't already, they're gonna start, or if they're probably already started. These things start early, and there's a lot of numbers, and I'm going to see if I can get them on and kind of talk about some of the things the city is facing with those. But
You know,
you know when it comes to a city that's growing like Waxahachie, one of the one of the big things is that we're not immune to the things that are going on in this country. Fentanyl, sex trafficking. I've talked to you, understand that. And
yes,
so I'm going into your subject here. There's fentanyl, there's different drugs, there's sex trafficking, human trafficking. And I've talked to the Ellis County Child Advocacy Center about that. And it's happening, and child abuse. And, um, you know, one of the important things that go into that is supporting law enforcement. What are your thoughts on that?
can we ever have more than enough law enforcement or firemen? I'll throw them in this conversation too. They are our first responders, and yes, I do have experience of working cases where there's been sex trafficking of kids, and you know, when I moved here to this community, I moved from Dallas where I was working CPS, and I thought we had a drug problem. I didn't realize I would face the same drug problem out here in this rural or more rural community at that time. But it is here. Fentanyl is here. It's a very dangerous drug, and we've got to do everything that we can to keep it out of our community and out of our schools, and hopefully out of the children's lives.
I know you
Uh,
can't speak on specific cases, but did you see those fentanyl poisoning amongst the kids that you were assigned in that area? Was that hitting already?
Well, in our community, only a couple of cases that I am familiar with where that was an issue.
And that's enough. That's
Yes.
enough.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
absolutely enough, and that it's coming. It's all
Yes.
coming. And I talked to the police chief of Midlothian. They're going through it too. So
Yes.
it's coming. So
Yes.
it's
It is. It's here, really. It's already here, and we have to be prepared to deal with it. And it is hard. And basically, here's what it boils down to: drugs is a breakdown of our families. It's a breakdown of our family structures that's going to affect our kids.
yeah,
If they're not getting what they need at home, and sometimes even if they are getting everything they need at home, kids are going to experience with different things. And if it's there and it's peer pressure from schools, kids at school, they're going to do it. And it's tragedy. They may only do it one time.
yeah,
So we have to have our law enforcement educated how to identify it, what to look for. And it's not just the fentanyl, it's all drugs. It's methamphetamines, it's cocaine. Just recently seeing a major resurface of cocaine and heroin.
really.
Yeah, you know, drugs kind of go through these waves. They're popular, everybody's using it, and then it dies down a little bit. But that's what we've seen recently is a resurgence of cocaine and heroin. Meth has never died down; it's always been popular. The more rural communities is where you'll see it at, but it's definitely infiltrated our homes, our families, and it's just horrible. I mean, there's no way about it. We've got to have trained law enforcement and firemen that are just tip top to be able to identify what's going on in these crisis situations and be able to help protect those kids and those families.
It's straight up poison, Mr. Melton.
Absolutely.
It's straight up
Absolutely.
poison. And it not only destroys the kid, which is bad enough, it destroys the whole family. Drug abuse, it just destroys. It's one big atom bomb to a family.
Yes.
So, um, I'll ask you a general question before I kind of give you the mic to speak directly to the people of Waxahachie as we close out. What is one thing, if you were elected to be city councilman, what is one thing that you could think of that you'd really like to change and why?
One thing to change.
And it could be several. I just, you know,
Uh, well, we talked about this at the beginning, but one thing to change, I think, is more transparency with our budgeting, with our roles and our responsibility of city council. I think we need more community involvement in that. You know, I was meeting with a group of people last night, and I discussed with a certain individual that it would be awesome if every council member had a committee around them whenever they need to bounce things off of or help make difficult decisions or where are we going in this direction with our budget, that they have someone that they can actually consult with before they're making the only decision. You know,
oh,
I think that would be a wonderful idea. One thing to change is I think it's more accountability, and I'm not in there right now. I don't know the level of accountability that they have. Okay, I just want to be upfront about that. I don't know what level of accountability and what's working and what's not working, but I think a good evaluation of what's working well and what's not working well needs to be addressed.
yeah. Well, unfortunately, we have come to the end of the show. I wanted to go ahead and give you the mic to speak directly to the people because ultimately it's about them and this is your time to present yourself to them.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Citizens of Waxahachie, I am seeking this position for one thing. I want to serve you as my constituents. I would like to give you a voice in Waxahachie. I think what we have in this city is with the historical significance, the historical value of the homes. I want to continue that. I would like the opportunity to make this a better place or continue with a good and wonderful place to live. So I'm asking for your vote. If you can come out on May the 6th, I'd appreciate your vote. Early voting begins April the 24th through May the 2nd, which is a great opportunity to complete your voting. But I ask for your backing and I ask for your vote. Thank you so much for this time and hope to see you soon.
Well, Mr. Melton, I'm glad that we were able to work this out and get you on, man. I appreciate when you guys come on the show, and this is not a comfortable thing to do. I try to make it as comfortable as possible. And I know that it's not a normal thing to do, and sometimes it can be kind of shaky even for me. It really can. But and sometimes the brain goes a little bit. I experienced COVID for the first time in the beginning of March, and this whole thing about COVID brain is real. It really
Yes, it
is,
is.
really
It
real.
sure is.
It has affected me. So I'm gonna have the superintendent of WISD on, Dr. Hollingsworth. I believe that's next Thursday. We're gonna talk about the bond. It's the hot issue, how it affects you. Put out some numbers, and that way you can look and you can get, because I really want you guys to be informed. Mr. Melton, can you stick around after the show?
Sure.
Thank you so much.